Hi everyone, welcome to Learning Along with Miss Meg. Today we're going to talk about books in the 800 section. Books like this talk about poetry, literature, plays, and writing. We're going to focus mainly on poetry and writing today. So, poetry is obviously a category in the nonfiction section. Its call number is 811. I'm going to talk to you about two poets today. One is Jack Prelutsky and J. Patrick Lewis. Both of these poets are United States Youth Poet Laureates. That means they were awarded this title by the Poetry Foundation because of their exceptional writing of poetry for children. They help to promote a lifelong love of poetry for you young readers. So, they have this title, Youth Poet Laureate, for 2 years. The present United States Youth Poet Laureate is Naomi Shihab Nye. First poet I'm going to talk about is Jack Prelutsky. He was the first Youth Poet Laureate, and he wrote the book, I've Lost My Hippopotamus. Its call number is J811.54 Prelutsky. This book appeals to many ages of readers, and it gives a variety of topics of different kinds of poetry and animal poems that are humorous and silly. It does a whole section in this book on animal haikus. He also fits words together to make them sound very interesting and uses unusual words that you don't typically hear in conversation. I'm going to show you two different poems by reading them to you of an animal haiku and the unusual words. The first one I'm going to read to you is called Mole. It's the haiku. It goes, tunnel. I tunnel. I never see my tunnels, yet they comfort me. And then the second poem is called The Fifth. Ever hear of a fifth? If you should ever spot a fifth, of which there are but few, then you're extremely fortunate. Not many people do. It's smaller than your fingernail and doesn't make a sound. So it's not easy to discern when there's a fifth around. A fifth is truly beautiful, a gem of form and face. It plainly is a pity that it's not more commonplace. But then again, because a fifth is such a tiny size, you'd be hard-pressed to notice it, and you might strain your eyes. One final fact about a fifth that you should know as well is that it manufactures an insufferable smell. So if you detect an odor that you'd rather not sniff and cannot tell what's causing it, it's probably a fifth. And here's some pictures that were illustrated for the fifth by Jackie Urbanovic. Okay, so that's the book, I've Lost My Hippopotamus. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Poetry of Us, more than 200 poems that celebrate the people, places, and passions of the United States. This book is edited by J. Patrick Lewis. He's the third United States Youth Poet Laureate. Its call number is QJ811.008 Poetry, and that's because it's edited by J. Patrick Lewis. So we use the first word of the title, poetry, to show that in the call number. So this book talks about poems, and poems about festivals, food native to the area, salutes to celebrities, holidays, and ethnic and national identities. Poems can be found also in this book in Spanish, Arabic, and Korean, and they're noted with the translation in English. J. Patrick Lewis ends with the the cornucopia of poems in the book, encouraging you to write a poem about what you have experienced in America with your friends and family. So I'm going to read to you 2 poems from this book. The one is from a previous poet laureate, Margarita Engel. It's called An American Wedding. Today my Cuban cousin married a Colombian neighbor. First we danced the rumba and the mambo, then the cumbia, and when Dominican neighbors arrived, everyone started dancing the merengue. But soon an Argentine came, so we danced to tango. A Latino wedding in Miami resembles the United Nations, and she also translates this poem into Spanish. The second poem I'm going to read deals with the Midwest. It deals with something that happens in Akron, Ohio, usually every year, and it's called A Recipe for the First Derby Cars, the Soapbox Derby in Akron, Ohio. Begin by simmering the Great Depression until you have a thick froth of thrift and innovation. Season with memories, snow hill sled thrill, just enough to whet an appetite for speed. Gather camaraderie, intuitive engineering, scraps of wood and salvaged wheels, ideas steeped in August heat. And it's written by Mary Lee Hahn. Okay, so that's the second book, The Poetry of Us. More than 200 poems that celebrate the people, places, and passions of the United States. The next book I'm going to talk about is one that will sharpen your writing skills. It's so you can learn how to snoop out good stories and write them down. And this book is written by Jack Gantos. He's the author and illustrator of Writing Radar. Its call number is J808.02 Gantos. He tells super humorous stories about his family and friends that demonstrate writing tips that he gives you throughout the book to help you to be a really good writer. He begins by asking you to think about what you like to read. Then he suggests that you keep a journal of writing ideas. Choose your favorite writing pen, and then snoop down stories to write. About halfway through the book, he begins to explain structure as the beginning, middle, and end of the story, and names the basic storytell pieces that fit into a story structure, like character, setting, theme, problem, rising physical and emotional action, physical and emotional crisis, and a resolution and solution to those crises or problems. And that gives you a physical ending and an emotional end that's going to highlight the change that happens in the main character from the beginning to the end. He tells funny stories to illustrate each of those pieces that he is teaching and how to fit it together by giving you an outline in the book. At the end, he tells you about each draft that you need to write to a different edit. So when you want to edit your pieces, you have to do an edit for dialogue, that's one draft, another draft for an edit in physical action, another draft for descriptions, and so on. He gives you a few different edits that you could do. He ends the book with writing exercises, and it helps you to sharpen your writing skills and to grow as an author. The last book I'm going to talk about is Share Your Smile, Raina's Guide to Telling Your Story by Raina Telgemeier. Its call number is J80802 Telgemeier. This book is Raina's Guide to Writing Graphic Novels. She shares, first of all, how she gets ideas, how to put graphic novels together, and how to tell your own personal story. Raina starts by telling how the graphic novel Smile was developed. She started by brainstorming ideas and came up with a chronological list of how her smile happened. Then she sketched and wrote to get ideas on paper, which also helps you in the process in creating the story. Then she tells the whole technique of creating the story all the way to the end of digitizing the story and making a cover for Smile. To help you create a graphic story, she asks questions about family, travel, or school experiences that you may have had. These questions can help you figure out your own personal story. So, for example, for family, she starts out by asking, who is in your family? She asks, what do you love about your family? What's one important thing your family has taught you? Those are some of the questions she asks about family. Then for travel, she asks, what's your favorite place that you've ever traveled? How do you get ready for a family vacation? What one travel trip tip would you share with your best friend? Who are your favorite people to travel with? What makes them so much fun? Those are some of the questions she asked to help you start to get ready to write a story, a graphic story about traveling. Then she talks about school. What's your favorite class in school? Who's your favorite teacher? What makes them the best? Write about something you look forward to during the school day. And then there's other questions in there about school to help you get started on that kind of story. She gives you clues on how to write about those experiences, and she tells you to start by creating your own photo album, using actual photos, and then looking at those photos and drawing pictures then of your friends, your family, yourself, your school, so forth, and gives you tips how to draw the ideas and faces of expressions. And she shows you how you draw different facial expressions, and these expressions help to build your story. She shows you how to capture background for the pictures you draw, and asks more questions to help you define that, and different landmarks you may see for your background. What buildings are around there? What's the mountains? What kind of land is there around? Raina also teaches you how to research topics for stories, what you are not familiar with the topic. And she asks you different questions for that. How long have you been involved with this subject? What is your role in it? Can you share an interesting story about this subject? And different questions like that to help you get to know what that subject's about. She also describes how to make places show atmosphere, how you feel in a real or imaginary place, like in the book she wrote, Ghosts. Lastly, Raina Telgemeier gives creativity tips to help you grow as an author. Raina Telgemeier's guide will help you to get started on your own personal graphic story and to grow as a graphic writer. So, I like to write, and I've written before. And while I was putting this together, I started to look for something that I wrote a long time ago. I thought of it because I thought, well, it could turn into a graphic story maybe. It's called Friend Prints. It's something I created a long time ago. So I realized that this is just beginning. This is like, as Raina describes it, sketching your ideas, sketching the pictures of your friends before you actually start to put it into a graphic novel and tell the whole story. So, like the first page would be, friendship is sharing good times. Like when my friend Sue and I sang Christmas carols during a snowstorm while walking back to our dorm during college. Now, for this, I could actually make this better by adding a background, maybe some of the building or what it looked like in that area. Also, in sharing good times, this isn't the whole story. That was just one good time. I could tell about a lot of good times, like other things that we've done, like kayaking or hiking, or when I visited her and going to see different places. Those are all different fun times that we've had. Friendship is sharing sad times too. Sue was there comforting me when my dad died. Or I listened when Pete's father passed away. Pete's her husband. So, again, this is only the basis for the story. There's a long story involved with that as well, and I could tell the whole thing in a whole more graphic. So the whole theme of this is probably friendship is being there. And again, these are all different good times that we could have had together, and they can all go into a different kind of graphic story. So when we visited the Louisa May Alcott house, or when we went swimming at the ocean, or when she came to my house and we went paddle boating, or roller skating, or made favors for my sister's wedding. Those are all different things that just are the basics, the bones of starting a graphic novel. And from that, you can continue and build a whole graphic story from that. So I hope you enjoyed listening about writing and poetry. And if you have any questions or things that you want to learn about, please let me know. And until then, enjoy learning.